Hello, can you hear me? Hello, Galway. I'm very happy to be here. I'm very happy to be invited to this beautiful place. Unfortunately, I don't have a lot of time to have a look around. I would like to see the cliffs of Mogar. It's not going to happen. I'm going to have to come back. And actually, I didn't really prepare anything for this talk because I did it a few times in the past, and I just end up reading a paper. And I like to keep a bit more contact with you because I'm not good at reading from a paper and bringing out the message. So I had a little theme, which is in your book. It says spontaneous cooking, adapt, react, create, evolve. So that's a bit of the guideline, what I'm going to talk about. And so I'm going to do a spontaneous speech too, as we're talking about spontaneous cooking. So I'd say we start off, I mean, if I would do a speech, you could just watch it on YouTube at home, in your couch or something with a beer. But as we are all here, you can ask me a question. If anybody has to ask me a question, and then I can just get started. It's going to be like a conversation with your wife. You just ask a question, and she keeps going on and on and on, right? Okay, that's the idea. So who has something interesting or not interesting to ask me so we can get this thing started? Around the theme, spontaneous cooking. Anybody?
How did you move the spontaneity from the older menu from your parents to the newer menu in your style? How did you make the jump?
Well, so when I started off in the Wolf, it was the brasserie from my parents, and there was a menu which was like called Flemish classic dishes, mostly around beer. A lot of beer in the kitchen, yeah, in Belgium. So when I came in, I didn't have a plan. I never had a plan. I will never have a plan. I just came in and I wanted to do something that I saw in the places I worked at. So I wanted to do something creative. I wanted to have fun cooking. So I had a take on those dishes from my mother and tried to make them more creative, which I don't know if it wasn't always a good idea, but there was this urge to play around and to start create and to be spontaneous. And at that point, I think when I started off, we did a monthly tasting menu. So it was like in my head that you would change your menu once a month or per season. But after a while, I just started thinking, I mean, this every day there's something changing. It's not like this. Okay, we're going into fall and then winter now, but every day something is changing. And that's also when we started working with a lot of the farms around us. We could see that, okay, well, this guy has this beautiful tiny leeks. He only has them for a week. There's only this amount. So yeah, we're going to work with it. We're going to adapt. Well, how do I say it? Adapt, react, create, evolve. So we're going to adapt to what he has to offer us. So the farmers, big heroes. Are any farmers in the house here now today? No farmers. Someone in the back there. We need more farmers here because this is about farmers in the end. We can change everything we want and we can talk about everything we want, but the people at the root down there, they are the ones that are going to change the way we eat, and we have to let them do that. They have to dictate what we are going to be cooking, and not the other way around. I think that's something very, very important. And also, I think it's very important to build around your restaurant this ecological, economical thing where people can. I mean, there's one of these farmers that we work with, Dries, and he started off about the same time as we did with the restaurant, or I took over the restaurant, and 10 years ago, he was a teacher, and he just wanted to be a farmer. So, and we took it like we started at the same point. We started working with him, supporting him, and now we have like 3 restaurants, and he has a really nice, big, but still very clever wild farming farm in Decabus, just near the restaurant. So we helped him, he helps us, and that's the way it always went before, and that's the way it should go, right? Any more questions? I'm running out of conversation.
How does your model work? Because how many seats have you got? How have you made it financially successful?
Wow, that's a good question. How do you make a restaurant financially successful in the middle of Dranuter, which is very remote, and there's basically nothing there. We're just against the French border, but it took the French 10 years to come visit my restaurant because they didn't believe that gastronomy could go beyond the boundaries into Belgium. But they're there now, then they're happy. So yeah, it is, and I think that's one of the biggest challenges if you talk about the future of food is how can you make a place like that, a restaurant in that model, still financially successful? It's very hard because, first of all, we do everything ourselves. So we have, if we're going to work with beef, we get half a cow in. If we work with pork, we get whole pork, and we use everything and we do everything. It's craft, it's artisan, it's what we do. Everything is made in-house, and the bread's baked in wood-fired ovens. I mean, this all takes a lot of hands, a lot of time, a lot of staff. And just it happens to be so that Belgium is the second up, like all the way up there for staff taxes and costs. So it's not easy at all. And yeah, well, see, it's a bit of a question. I'm trying to figure out how to make it financially successful, actually. Maybe somebody can help me with that. I need a plan.
Tell us about beer, beef in Belgium. Incorporating beer in your cuisine?
Well, I don't actually use so much beer in my cuisine. We have a really interesting, and I think that's going to lead back a bit to the spontaneous cooking. So we had this, I just love to play around, and I think that's very important if you just get these, you work with these farmers and then you get sometimes a little bit of this, sometimes a little bit of that. But we did like a beer dish actually that came up last week on the menu, and I haven't worked with chocolate in my restaurant for about 10 years, so I wanted to do a chocolate thing, and I really love that the chocolate dessert, the puff pastry from Alain Passard. Anybody ever had that? It's just amazing. You go to Arpège in Paris and you have that chocolate puff pastry. So I wanted to do an idea on that, so I made a beer-based sabayon with chocolate, which went in the bottom of a bowl. And then I made the puff pastry. I just slice it up and give it like a bit of texture of chocolate. And then we finish it at the table. So I was working on this, and I wanted a beer reduction to go on there. But we only had a beer reduction from another dish, which had a leek miso in it. So I used the leek miso with the beer on the chocolate dessert. And it made sense. It was just an accident, you know. It's just like, maybe I was a bit lazy. I didn't want to make a beer reduction, so I used the one from the hot side there for that dish. And it made sense, so we put it on the menu, and it's a big success. And I think that's really interesting because, you know, everything, the way that I know I'm here now is because just a follow-up of coincidences, basically. I started cooking as a coincidence, not because I had this vision that I needed to be a cook or needed to be here one day. So, and I love in the kitchen that we act upon ideas and coincidences. So I built this little test kitchen in the restaurant, and I had big plans of spending a lot of days there on my own, nobody bothering me. But I can't do it. I need to be around people, I need to be around produce, and I need to have that vibe going on, and then I can create. And I love to create in, like dishes, create in 5 minutes. I cannot create it. I mean, a dish evolves through the seasons the whole time, but I never spend more than 5 minutes creating the idea because it needs to be an idea. And ideas come from everywhere, just how you grasp them. And I think you should be, as a restaurant of the future, you have to work with whatever is available for you. That's how people cooked back in the days, right? They cooked with what's available. And that's where all the whole creative process came together, because people cooked with what they had, not what they wanted. See, that's the big difference between the restaurant, not even a restaurant, how people used to cook, a restaurant now, and the future of food, I think. Make sense? Right. Well, we did make a choice to limit ourselves, to work within a boundary. So the question was, how can you limit yourself when everything is available? And yeah, you can have everything. That's one of the motivations where I said, okay, the creative process of your kitchen, if you have everything on hand, how can you be creative? Because everything's out there. So you have to create this box. Well, you have to think out of the box, but you have to create this box in which you maneuver. And then what you basically do, you start thinking very different. If you say, okay, I'm not going to work with all these produce from around the globe, I'm just going to look for what's around me. In the beginning, it really sucks, man. It just really sucks because you want to do something and everything is based on stuff that you and I can't because you tell yourself you can't. I can't use that. I can't use that. So it feels a bit like a prison in the beginning. And then after it's a prison, it becomes a challenge. And after it becomes a challenge, it becomes logic. Because you actually build up, if you start thinking about, okay, we can only get these produce now in the summer and this and that. So you're going to start with ways of preserving them. But you're going to not necessarily think in your own culture. You're going to start thinking about like Japanese techniques. So we started making, a few years ago, we started making our own koji barley, like misos. And now we have, like, in a few years, we build up this catalog, basically. If you want to create a dish, then we have this catalog of 10 different misos or all these ferments and pickles. And we can just pick out flavors that we created because they're not, I mean, it's all things that don't exist. Like last week, we had this great thing where Al, my Australian sous chef, so I really like it when people in the kitchen, they like bring out ideas, and it's not a one-man show, it's a team effort. And we had this beautiful red mullet from the Belgian coast, but he had way too much. I mean, the fisherman fucked us over, and he just brought in like 20 kilos where we only wanted 10 kilos, but they were beautiful. So we said, okay, what are we going to do with all this beautiful red mullet? I mean, I can't sell it. There's not enough guests coming to sell all this fish. And then he made this lango beans. It's like a white bean, typical in the region. And Al had made a miso out of those white beans, which is really, really, really good. And then he thought of this technique, this Japanese technique, where they preserve fish inside miso. So we did the red mullet, just raw, the debones, and it went into this paste all layered up with the bean miso. And after a week, we got it out, and it was one of the best things I ever tasted. It's so delicious. It's better than the real thing, basically. So we started doing that now with, like, we order a bit more scallops in to try to preserve our scallops like that. And that's how that whole creative process is so much fun, but you're using and you're saving and you're not wasting. You're just thinking about ways to use everything in that kitchen. And that's really a lot of fun. I'm very off the question, probably, but... Okay.
Sorry, do you want to talk us about your team? Because you have here now Rose Green, has been working with you for a long time, and again an Irish girl, and you have down here Sarah Lemke. I'm not familiar with Sarah, but do you want to talk about your team? And then is there more females than males in your team, or how does it work?
I have to say, and it's not because I'm here in Ireland, but the strongest person ever to walk into my kitchen and to have such a big influence is an Irish girl called Rose Green from Westmead. You know Westmead? Okay. She's amazing. She's amazing. So, because I am always I'm a pretty chaotic person. So I have an idea and I just step on another idea, or I start off with something else. So I never follow up really on what I'm doing. It sounds very strange. But then there's Rose, who has this perfect structure, and she like connects to me, and then she follows up, and she keeps a little logbook with the misos, and she keeps a logbook of the charcuterie that we've been making, and this has been hanging there for a year, 2 years, and she's just amazing. And I think that's the most important thing. I mean, we have a job where we can have fun. I mean, I love to say that I don't work in a kitchen, I play in a kitchen, like you play in a band. I mean, everybody's connected to each other. You all know what you're doing, and somebody from the outside world doesn't really know how it all seems to work. It's like a band. You don't know how, like, bands seem to, hey, man, how do they do it to come up with all these songs and play together? It's like a kitchen. So we're all playing together. We're having a lot of fun. We get to meet people. It's really a beautiful way of life. And definitely, if you have, like, really... You have to let people inspire you around you, and that's what, like, for instance, Rose Green. Sarah Lemke is also, Sarah Lemke is an American, and she, I was desperate to start baking the wood-fired oven bread a few years ago, so I got these books from Chad Robertson and some really interesting books, and I started making my own sourdough bread, but it just, like, if you're chaotic and you don't have patience, you're a shitty baker. Don't try it. But I really wanted it. So I was like on social media looking for somebody to learn me the old craft of baking bread and how does it work. And after like a few months, we got like a reply from somebody from Wisconsin, Madison County in the United States. And she said, I have experience. I'll come and teach you how to make bread. Yeah, okay. So there's this tiny little human being steps in. She's like this. She's like, I'm not exaggerating. So and I'm like, what? She's gonna teach me about making bread. And, well, I'm not, but you know, it seemed a bit strange. But she had so much fire in her. I mean, she's just amazing. So she stayed for 2 months with a tourist visa. And after 2 months, I said, we just have to start a bakery together. I mean, you're making breads here for like, what, 40 covers in the restaurant, but you have all this skill, you have this fire in you, we need to do something with it. And you're not going to do it back home, because you don't get the chance to do it, so I want to give you the chance. So we started off with a stupid idea, let's make a bakery. And that turned into a really successful restaurant now, after we opened for 1 year. And like I was there last week, and people were just lining up in Ghent, it's in the city again, people were lining up to come have lunch and to have that delicious bread. So you start off with a stupid fucking idea, and it turns into a fucking amazing thing, and that's what I love in life and in my work. So you start off with something humble and stupid, and then it grows into something, and that's with the people. You have to give them the chance. The people working with you, everybody has a story. They're all going to add something. So you just have to listen up, yeah. I have a timer, yeah? It doesn't work. Or is it done?
In terms of sparking your creativity at Indewolf, I gather that you set that boundary sort of condition in terms of, in terms of gathering in your ingredients, and if I understand correctly, the limitation itself forces creativity upon you.
It does, yeah.
Is there anything else that you have in terms of structuring that creativity within your restaurant? I'm minded of the fact that Ferran Adria, you know, his particular goal every year was 100 new dishes, which of course is, you know, fabulously and extravagantly ambitious. So yeah, I mean, I don't know how he did it, but do you actually set any sort of like standard creativity goals to kind of hit in terms of new dishes, you know, per year, or what sort of structure that you maybe haven't revealed yet do you actually have for producing a machine of, I suppose, creativity in your restaurant? Do you understand the question? I've rambled a bit.
In which structure do we move, and do we get that? Like, how can we do that in terms of?
Yeah, do you have? I understand that the limitation in terms of where you gather ingredients from is a formal limitation that you've decided upon. And I'm just wondering, is there any other formal structures that you have in place in terms of driving creativity aside from working within that limited landscape?
I think you just force that creativity on yourself. You just allow it because you, like I said, you have people dictating you or not, or just telling you what to use, and then you force that creativity upon yourself. You have to be creative, or you're not going to have a new dish. And you want to have, well, it's not that I want to have a new dish every day, but I mean, the menu changes. Every day we change 1 or 2 dishes, or it could be a completely new dish, or it could be a dish that's evolving. So we have this one dish, which we started off in summer, which had the string beans, the runner beans, right? So we started off with a dish from runner beans, cut very thin, cooked straight in charcoal, and then finished off with it was a pickled, fermented gooseberry Hollandaise sauce that just went on top. So it was an amazing dish. And now we still have the dish on, but it turned into a Celtus root dish, which is thinly sliced, cooked in charcoal, with a very intense broth of charcoal roasted mussels. So, and in between those 4 months, or like with the 3 months that we had started with that dish and ended up there's been like, I think, 10 different dishes around the same idea. So you change it, and it evolves. It evolves the whole time, and you create new dishes like that also.
Ladies and gentlemen, stand up.
Thank you. Thank you.